How you doing, guys? This is Eric from RuleTheWasteland.com. Once again, back with the Prepper Trifecta. Got Che here. We probably don't have any actual viewers yet, but
we'll
let you guys
talk to
trickle
ourselves.
in. Yeah, we'll talk to ourselves for a little bit. We normally get a few people to show up pretty quick. You see it and they're just on
those
it.
like super hardcore fans. They got to be like, I gotta get the first thing.
Yeah, like the guys who comment first. They're just like, yes.
Every Sunday.
Right. Got it. What's up?
I've always found that weird to start a show live when you're the first 30 seconds of what you say is not going to be heard by 99% of the people that are watching it. At
least not the live viewers. There are, I mean, these stay up on YouTube, so I kind of do it from the perspective of this being watched later from other people too, because those numbers are actually much higher than the people who watch it live typically. Like if we end up getting 1,500, if we end up getting 1,500 views or whatever, most of those people didn't watch it live.
Right.
But it is still interesting, yeah, because it's done primarily. The live stream is done primarily for the live viewers. What's up, Evil Blonde, Bizarrizza Gizza, Donna Hoffman, a few people up here, Trifecta.
762. These are all regulars.
Yeah, I like it.
I gotta bump into these people at Survival Expos and hey, I'm XYZ. I'm 762. I'll be like, yeah, I know you from YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. I recognize that.
Recognize that name.
Indian John from SoCal.
So tonight's going to be interesting. We have what did you call this?
I called it Endgame.
Cool.
Plus anonymous 3%er interview.
So I'll elaborate on the anonymous 3%er viewer in a little bit, but why Endgame in relation to the
election?
The election. What was your take on the Trump rally? Excuse me, the Biden bus and the Trump trucks around it.
I think that shit's hilarious, and it's so funny to see like the moral posturing and the hand wringing about this, like, oh, this dangerous behavior. No, they're getting run out of town after months of them calling like literal riots, peaceful protests. Where people are literally getting battered, beaten, shot, businesses burned down, and then have a bunch of people broad daylight on the streets driving safely, just following them, honking and waving, as being like this horribly dangerous and scary behavior. It's just ridiculous.
We've beaten this to death, Eric. The speculations on the election, what's going to happen, if Trump wins, if Biden wins, if this or that. We're, 2 days away? 3 days away?
Yeah, 2 days.
Is anything changed for you? Anything stand out in terms of, well, I've kind of felt this, but
yeah, a little bit. Like I had said in the past,
stronger about that.
Right. I had said, like I said, I mentioned in the last
with the audience.
Sure, I have. I'll post up in terms of just the results. I can post that really quick first, I guess. I haven't changed my official prediction from what I made my video on over a month ago. At this point, I think. Let me do a screen share real quick. I'm predicting that this is what the electoral map will look like. 320 to Trump. I think, like I mentioned in that video before, I don't see any reason to think that he would lose any state he got in 2016. And I think he'll also probably pick up Minnesota and New Hampshire for a total of 320. I think next on that list, if he were to really have a nice blowout, would be Nevada. I think it's close. And I could even see scenarios where Virginia goes, just based on support in the black vote and just overall. But yeah, like 320 is where I think we're at. I think the low end would be just below what he got last time, anywhere from like the mid 280s up to as high as like 347 or something. But my official prediction is 320. Now, and I'd said last week, I think that the better he did, the less I thought there would be civil unrest, but I kind of don't know if I still believe that, simply because of the level of like cognitive dissonance that I'm seeing, that it's going to be more of these people they really do think that they're doubling down. They really do think that Biden's going to win and think that he should win. So I think the more of a blowout could be more of a shock to their system. So I've kind of changed on that a little bit, but I still don't think that there's going to be like really widespread civil unrest. I think it'll be city center stuff.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Fair. Sorry, finish your thought.
No, yeah, that was it. That was pretty much it.
you had a phrase, they're shocked to the system. I think that's a really good way to put it with respect to some of these people, because there are some people that are very, very adamant about Biden winning, and they're convinced and put their life savings towards it. Just like there are people the same way with Trump. But you've obviously gotten a lot further with respect to your analytics and in terms of coming to the conclusions you've come to.
Right.
If you don't mind, Eric, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just tell them about our special guest this evening. I have a gentleman that's going to join us from an organization called the 3 Percenters. And I don't know much about the organization. I don't even know this person in particular all that well either. If you have not heard of the 3 Percenters before, then this is going to be a very interesting show for you tonight. So this individual is going to remain anonymous. It's going to join us at 9:30, about halfway through the show. And if you have any questions, for the whole show, make sure to do it in all caps for us so we can see it in the chat window. And maybe this would be a good time to start conjuring some things you would ask an anonymous 3 Percenter. What's your take on 3 Percenters, Eric? Have you heard of them?
I mean, I'll summarize
obviously
my perspective of the group, or it's pretty nebulous as far as groups go. I mean, it's more of a belief system, if I'm not mistaken. Is it actually for the most part a strictly speaking an actual group? That I don't even know. I had always heard of it. How I'd always heard of it was that 3% of the people in the original United States, 3% of the population is what actively fought against the British in the Revolutionary War. There's only really 3% of the people. Most people weren't really supporting the British per se, but they weren't actively fighting them either. So only 3%. So that was used as like a rallying, like we are the core that will actually stand up for freedom, against tyranny, whatever. So how it's, and people have patches that said 3%. I know Oath Keepers used the symbol for a while with a 3 in like a circle of stars and things like that. So how it's moved beyond that, I haven't really been tracking. I've just heard people refer to themselves and other people as 3 Percenters. But as far as it being an actual organization or not, I honestly don't even know at this point. So I've always just had it as referred to as people who were like, I'm basically pledging to be one of those people who actively takes up arms for freedom if necessary. That would be my like bird's eye view of the situation.
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of clarification for both of us. I know that we, in Canada, there's a very negative lens that's placed on the 3 Percenters, and it's seen more as it is. So even the word militia in Canada is tainted. We're not legally allowed to have militias in Canada, which is an odd thing. You guys are.
Yeah.
So we'll let our guest answer these questions, I think, down the when he arrives at 9:30. Actually, I should probably email him that link so he's ready. So what's new this week, man?
Not much. I got a little bit of the stash of memes from everybody in the email, but 4 or 5 people each sent in a few, so I got about 30, I think, which is pretty solid. So we'll see. We'll let everybody take a look at those. I'll try to maybe knock that out right before we get our guest, or maybe right out, depending on how long he's planning on staying. I'm not sure. So
we committed to 15 minutes, but you can stay for the rest of the show.
To 15 minutes, you said you committed to?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, that's what I suggested. I thought that was healthy, but he may want to,
that's solid. So I can wait till afterwards. I just didn't know if you had planned on going the whole rest of the show, and I didn't want to bust them out early. We got a question. Shay, do you sell those hoodies? Someone's asking.
Yeah, I know. I get that all the time from people. I should.
You don't? You just made like your own?
I had well, it wasn't like that. I went in and said, hey, this is actually the symbol of my network, and this is off of we've talked about this before with the signage and what it means. It's the OPSN, Ontario Prepper Survival Network, which is a local network I've had here since 2012, where I've had lots of guests, wild edible experts, tracking experts, when we just do these sort of live teachings. So I got 50 printed out. This is about maybe 6-7 years ago. I had a contract, nothing to do with preparedness. I had a contract with my work, and as part of the payment, the guy had a t-shirt business. So I said, hey, why don't you give me like 50 t-shirts, give me like a bunch of small, bunch of medium, and give me a couple of hoodies. So there's 2 of these. I don't know where the other one is, actually. It got lost in the mix. It was one of a kind, I guess.
Wow. Well, now you have there's all these websites now where you can just upload the image and it's print on demand, so you don't have to make them ahead of time. You use like Teespring or Printify or something, and literally you just upload the image and they can put it on shirts, on hoodies, whatever, and then it's only made as ordered, so there's no initial outlay of cost. It's free.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's awesome. Appreciate you saying that. I think it's more just I don't know if I'm interested in branding.
No, true. I see what you're saying.
This is for me. The
right.
odd like hardcore fan that wants one, then I'll give one away. I don't care to profit from selling a symbol associated with my network. If anything, I might do like a sticker, something like the Freemason. You've got a symbol. Use this symbol. Put on your decal in your car,
then
and then you'll know. Okay,
that, yeah.
If I shake your hand this way, then it means what it means.
Evil Blonde suggests that you got 50 because you really hate doing laundry, so you're just gonna wear it for a whole year or something, and then eventually do one massive load of laundry.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because my ex-wife, the one time she made me laugh, I shouldn't say that. One thing that made me really funny, there's a meme that she posted with a laundry basket and a bunch of dirty clothes right beside it, and at the top it said, "Woman, understand the struggle," or "know the struggle."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I would leave my.
I'm so bad about that. I just was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and I was like, the problem is I just need to have more hampers, because I have spots. I have like next to the shower, I have like next to the bed, and so like if I had a hamper in every one of those spots, it wouldn't be an issue.
Maybe it's maybe for some people it's like a dominant subconscious thing. It's you
spread your shit everywhere. Yeah, exactly. It's like pissing on a tree. You just rub your soiled underwear on everything to claim the spot.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things. Lay down on the couch, talk to a psychologist about it.
Right. Why do I feel the need to strew my laundry across the room?
Yeah, every other day, I just throw my clothes everywhere. There was a question here. Isaac Newton, will there be massive civil unrest this week? That's a question I get. I think we kind of beaten it to death in terms of our views on Trump. I can't wait for this gentleman to give us his views on what he speculates is going to happen. I will say this, Isaac, and Eric, please follow up with your 2 cents too. I mean, I think the consensus amongst most people is there's a huge concern, and even that expands to the corporate level too, where Walmart is saying, "Hey, we're taking ammo off the shelf,"
right?
Which says a lot. So I think people are expecting something, and if I were to say, I think people are going to be pissed. I think if you had a great term there, Eric. The shock people are going to have, people's system. There's going to be outlashes, but I don't think it's going to be crazy. We'll say crazy, level 3 out of 10, not a 7.
Yeah, I think it's pretty universal, like you said. Everyone agrees that there's going to be some civil unrest. The only question is, will it be massive, as the question stated? That I don't know. I don't tend to think that it will be massive. It might feel that way if you're in the midst of it, but from like a detached perspective, looking at the country, I don't think it's going to get to the point, hopefully, where it'd be considered massive. But yeah, I mean, that's what I was just talking about, where looking at what these people are saying is that you'd think that the people would have learned from 2016, at least realize that they can be wrong, but instead they've doubled down, and now they're predicting that Biden, who's a much even weaker candidate than Hillary, and after Trump's already the incumbent and everything, that he has a 90% chance to win and everything, like even more likely. And they're setting themselves up to be even more just like upset and disappointed and shocked. So I definitely think there will be civil unrest. I mean, it hasn't ever even stopped yet. There's still the stuff in Philadelphia right now.
Right. So like there was a break.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I mean, it started up again for another police shooting there, so it never really stopped. And so I definitely don't think it'll stop when something happens that they really don't like. Trump, if Trump is.
That's right. You actually gave me a great thought, which is with it not only stopping. I think one thing that concerns me, just thinking about this now, is the gravity or the depth of how far it's gone previously. I mean, people have taken over police stations.
Right.
So if that was nipped in the butt earlier this year, and which basically we had launched, and I'm not saying this is law enforcement's fault by any means or government officials' fault, but if we did, people were more proactive, and maybe it is, maybe some governors are just said, let be free, and law enforcement had to put their hands up in the air. But if we nipped all this stuff in the butt,
signals coming
would have
through
been better. Because people who
I'm only getting about every fifth word over here. You're frozen up, sir. Uh-oh, we may have lost Che. But yeah, like I said, we
rebellion on.
Oh, are you back? No, yes.
Yeah, well, sorry, did I cut out or?
Yeah, you were very intermittent for about a minute there. So
sorry
I think you're no, there's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, you seem to be back now. But yeah, even like someone mentioned in the comments, even some of these cities are literally boarding up downtown areas in anticipation of stuff going crazy. Walmart removing, or allegedly, I heard some more said that they may have put the stuff back now, and it was, I don't know, but at least some of the Walmarts have removed guns and ammo from their shelves in anticipation of maybe being looted or something. I don't know. So at least people out there are afraid of it. Whether or not it's actually going to get serious, there's no way to tell ahead of time. But like we've been saying for weeks, it's better to just get a few extra weeks or days worth of groceries, make sure your stuff's in order. I went ahead and finally cleaned my gun last night. I've been out to the desert a few times and hadn't done it, so it was a little dusty. It's all nice now. Mag's all loaded up, ready to go. But like, I really don't think it'll get to that level to where we'll be like popping off from my porch, you know. But if it is, you know, I'm ready.
Go on, I'll pop a cap.
Yeah. If it happens, I got something for him. I don't think it will, though.
I agree. So we're already at 20 minutes in. Let's do your memes. You got like 150 memes here, so
it's like 30. Yeah, it's nothing that crazy. So what I haven't decided.
Maybe give people a backstory.
Right. So last week we said that. Yeah, I've been a little bit derelict in my duties of providing decent memes, so I don't have like one or two at a time. So I put it out to you guys, the audience, that to send me some memes, and we would do some kind of vote or something to determine which one is the best one, and whoever wins will get a couple, actually 4 of 2 different sizes free of my mini and micro survival tins. So I think Che is frozen up again, but we're going to bust open the memes here. Yeah, exactly. So the strip might get crazy, and that's kind of something that I mentioned before with these protests, is that even where they happen, it's been extremely rare. There's been a couple isolated cases, but it's extremely rare that people just at their house have had to deal with this. It's happened a couple times, like McCloskey's and 1 or 2 other people, but most of the time people dealing with riots or having to, you know, deal with that sort of situation is because they're out downtown in an area where pretty much everyone knew this was going to be happening. So if you are strictly speaking trying to avoid the riots, then it usually isn't that hard. So it looks like we lost Che. Hopefully he'll come back in a second. Got that Canadian internet. Oh, there he is, coming back. So here I'm going to work on sharing my screen in the meantime. We'll have to come up with a decent way of determining who or which memes you guys like the most. So I'll give Che a second. No, still doesn't come back. All right, before I do the memes, I'm going to give him a minute or two to come back. Let me see if you guys have any comments. Bad weather in Ontario. Has my election predictions changed at all? No, not really. I mentioned that very briefly in this live stream, that I still predict 320 for Trump. I think that he gets everything he got in 2016 plus Minnesota plus New Hampshire, and I think the next most likely to flip is Nevada at this point, which I hadn't really been that hot on. A while back, I didn't really think it was possible, but it's looking stronger and stronger. And I think even Virginia actually may be the next up. So, hey, you're back.
Having internet issues here, man. Sorry about that.
It happens. I'm about ready for the memes. You ready?
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Am I voting? Am I participating?
Yeah, Che might be. Well, I don't know if we'll have a formal vote, but we'll see if there's any that the crowd really likes. If not, then Che will be the arbiter of who wins the prize. So
here we go.
Here we go. School playground equipment in the year 1900. Apparently, only the strong survived recess. And you see, like up here, this kid who's apparently like falling to his death. I don't know if he's swinging or what, but it looks like he's certainly about to just break his spine.
Yeah. Doesn't look good.
But seriously, like, look at that. That thing is fucking awesome and incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
So next up, we have smelled someone else's fart with a mask on, but pretend the mask will save you from a deadly disease. Whoops, I skipped a couple. Here, next up is so good. It's Trump drinking liberal tears on his cereal. Then we have a moment of tension in the Vatican. If the bishop moves forward, the queen can take him. So a little nerdy chess joke there for you.
Good.
Then we have, I'm going to work on being less condescending. Condescending means when you talk down to people. So then we have someone who really wants to know what the squirrel is annoyed at. I don't know if even this qualifies as a meme. It's just a funny picture. Then we have, this one is from your buddy here, Denab. He sent that over. He said, eating infected bunnies gave me the COVID. So can't eat rabbits. And then 2020 vision, someone posted Trump's face on Abraham Lincoln. And then we got, it was at that moment that Louis realized why Rob had bought him lunch every day for the past 2 years. Got good cover there. And his buddy. He's a big cop. And then we have this one. Prediction with everything, including the fucking moon. Which I don't know how many electoral votes the moon gets, but it does remind me of these memes that came out during 2016 where there was like Jeb was winning everything.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, and then a free mask from a face hugger.
Right.
I'll cover your face. Biden for sale. For more information, contact Hunter. Hunter Biden says white lines matter. Although I think he's more into crack than the powder stuff.
Oh, that's what okay.
Yeah, like, white lines doesn't cocaine. For those of you who aren't degenerate.
Wow.
White cocaine. Yeah. And then here, I don't know if this one showed up before, but I can't remember. So this is mostly peaceful protests, and inside is actually arson, murder, looting. I'm like, no, it's okay. Mostly peaceful. Then we have stop driving with your mask on. Yeah, I agree with that. I can't tell you how many times I see people in their car or out walking around in like an open air mall or even in the parks and everything with their masks on. And it's like sunny outside. It's ridiculous.
Bit too much.
Here, who built the cages, Joe? Who built the cages? Which is from the second debate, or the final debate, I guess. Technically the third one. The second one was skipped. Then we have select all the squares with a winner. They're only Donald Trump. Then this is why I've learned to question everything. And you can see both of these are significantly different, even though it's supposed to be the same. And even if you're worried about panic buying, Walmart still has toilet paper on sale.
Oh no, that's kind
98 cents for the book.
Wow.
And let's see who is really behind COVID-19. Zoom. No. Zoom stock did go up by it's like price like 2,000 times earnings or something stupid. Then we have, so I ordered this face mask to protect against coronavirus. And hold up, it says something here, made in China. I don't know why. I just love the Winnie the Pooh's face there, like the creepy. He's like, what the fuck? Yeah. It's like, I've seen some shit. Coronavirus is stopped after racist and homophobic tweets from 2009 resurface. Gets canceled. Then we have coronavirus, which actually originally all started by a kid falling into a gorilla enclosure. It all comes back to Harambe. Harambe started it all, kicked us off onto this timeline. This one is funny. He says, why do you wear dark colors, sir? So I won't get shot. And he says, why does Robin wear bright colors? So I won't get shot. Same reason.
All right, I like that, man.
Yeah, that one was good. And the new poll shows Biden's winning nearly every province in China. But then I like how they throw in Joe Jorgensen has one too. Pretty funny. And then it's Beto saying, hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47, and we have incoherent boogaloo noises. And then me following the SWAT stack into my house at 3 a.m. without them noticing. Post up right behind them. Then remember, kids, Smokey the Boogaloo Bear says, only you can return fire.
Yeah. Like that.
And then the gray man versus the actual gray man.
It's true.
Yep. Then we have, you should wear a mask even if you don't need it. You mean like carrying a gun? And the guy gets salty. He's like, wait a second. Then we have, salad could be grown on Mars, the scientists say. And it's like, well, fuck you, says my failed Earth garden. But yeah, it's not even that easy to grow stuff on Earth, let alone on Mars.
Let alone by a dog.
Yeah. And then this one says, should I run for it? I think your chances are pretty good. That's a fat cop.
Big guy.
Oh, and then we're back to the beginning. So that was it. Those are the memes. So what's your
There was a lot.
There was a lot.
To churn through those. I like the first one personally. It was awesome. What it is. There's just something about that big playground.
Yeah, that one is good.
Chaotic, and the one kid like literally
falling to his death.
Falling down. It broke something for sure.
Yeah.
So
cool. So we'll make that the winner.
Maybe the crowd will give us their.
We have one likes the cop one. I like the Batman one, and
I like the Batman
recess
sure.
one.
The cop of the which one? The incest one?
No, the recess, the one with the playground.
Okay. I thought you said incest. I was like, oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, I missed that one. No.
I don't remember seeing one about that. Yeah.
Top one.
All right. Well, I think our guest can come on at any time if you would like to. We're at that point, and I don't even know if I should bother showing my memes. I mean, yours are actually, I have to show one.
Yeah.
Maybe we're waiting for a guest to pop up. I will share this because it is freaking hilarious. And I'll apologize in advance if the sound goes all wonky. Always seems to. Whenever I sign up with this other account because I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
Okay. That was like meme overload.
I know, right? There's almost too many. We need like a good 5 or 6.
Maybe you should pick the top 5 next week of whatever you get. If people
that's
just
true.
continue sending them.
I'll do the top 5. And then I'll be a curator. I'll become a meme curator.
Yeah.
All right.
Here we go.
Second window's popping up.
Share screen and.
Oh, you got your buddy in here.
Cool. All right, we'll introduce him in a second. And okay, can you see that?
Yeah, it says I'm not a robot.
Okay. And then it's got
yeah, really. Severed human hand.
Severed human hand. Be honest, is my Halloween costume too scary?
A QAnon.
We've got QAnon. This one I found particularly interesting. I don't know why.
Warm scrambled egg and a bag of Sprite.
Yeah, take one. Bag of Sprite. Who would hand out a bag?
I don't know, but it's hilarious. You guys have bagged milk and stuff up there, don't you?
Yeah.
I like the warm scrambled egg with no serving utensil either. Like you just palm a big thing.
This one took me a second to get, but guy bumps his head. He's visiting Japan. It's also me wondering if Godzilla was just a normal-sized lizard.
Because everything is just tiny there.
It's just a massive guy. So.
That's funny.
Okay, so let me close this up.
Will do.
And introduce our guest. All right, how are you? Can you hear us okay?
Yep, got you guys loud and clear.
Awesome.
Cool. What's going on?
Not much. I thank you guys for the opportunity to speak tonight.
For sure. Thanks for connecting. I did this I reached out on Facebook and I basically said I wanted to reach out to get connected with somebody with the 3%ers to get the perspective, give it some more clarity. And there's it seems to be a lot of misinformation with respect to what it's all about. So perhaps you can inform me and the audience here with the basics. We'll start there. What is the 3%ers? What does that mean?
So the 3%ers was started about 5 years ago by a gentleman by the name of Alan Graham. That's when I had originally joined up, started following him on Facebook, and basically the 3%ers the montage kind of dates back to the Revolutionary War, where only 3% of actual sovereign citizens here in the colonies stood to actually fight against the Brits. So that's kind of where the 3% montage comes from. Now, unfortunately, Alan Graham got out a couple of years back. There was infighting, like so many organizations. I've been a volunteer firefighter. It's the same thing in volunteer firefighter houses. Everybody's small fish in a big pond, and everybody wants their own piece of the pond. So there was a splitting of the 3%ers original group. And then there became the UP, United Patriots 3%ers, the AP 3%ers, which I was a part of. There's a couple other 3%er groups which have a little less reputable reputation, and hence why I think so many of the groups actually kind of get a jaded name with the media and the press. The main thing being in New York with the 3%ers, AP 3%, was that we in the state of New York could not be a militia because it was against the state constitution. So all of our training was always under the geist of, a civil action group, basically teaching people how to survive, how to prep, how to can, how to live off grid, how to filter water, how to collect water, how to build a potato cellar or a root cellar, and basically survival skills in winter and everything else that would go with it, hunting, how to read a land nav map and properly navigate. So it kind of branched into more of a survivalist prepper type of setup, which is something I had always been in since Ruby Ridge occurred in Waco. I always kind of felt that sometimes governments could overstep their bounds and bad things could happen. And I think these groups have kind of blossomed over the years. I've had interactions here in the Florida area where I'm at now. When I was state XO, we had an op that we ran to introduce ourselves to the John Brown Gun Club, which is a communist-based group. And this is around the time that a lot of 3%ers were going down to New Orleans to kind of step between the Aryan Nation and the Antifa members that were wanting to tear down statues and tear down each other. Because our montage was that basically everybody has the right to freedom of speech and a peaceful coexistence. And that's kind of where the 3%ers was for me, was that we were there to support whoever, to make sure that they had their rights to peacefully protest, not being inferred upon by government officials or by anti-groups that are anti-belief on their own. We even basically went to a couple rallies down here where we were kind of the middlemen between the people wanting to tear down statues and the people wanting to tear down those that wanted to tear down the statues. So the 3%ers for me was always about what the Constitution had come to be, or what the Constitution was originally laid out by the founders. But it grew into more than that. It grew into a group of like-minded individuals that wanted to learn how to prepare for any scenario, whether it be a grid down, an asteroid strike, civil war, or any other type of scenario that many of us preppers probably run through on a daily event.
Yeah, so you'd say that you originally started from the perspective of potentially preparing for some sort of, not necessarily revolution, but if you had to get to that point where arms were needed to be taken up in defense or against tyranny, towards more of a general preparedness?
Correct. Case in point was Irma did a lot of damage down here on the west coast of Florida. Yeah. I was at the time up in Maine, and when I came back, I met up with the Rhode Island chapter, who had actually paid for a U-Haul trailer for me to bring back to Florida with supplies. So it became a bit of a civic duty. We interacted a lot with the Cajun Navy during hurricane events as well too. So it actually became an action group as well too. So not just to stand against tyranny, but to help fellow Americans out, no matter what the situation was.
Yeah, I guess that actually gives you more to do in the meantime, you know what I mean? Because obviously, hopefully we'll never get to that point where we need to have another revolution or anything like that, but it certainly could. But if you expand your scope like that, it gives you a lot more things that you can do and train for and prepare for in the meantime. So it's pretty good. Why do you think that? Because it's obvious that everyone in the country at least gives lip service to the fact that it's good that America broke away from the British government and everything. But why do you think there's so much negative attention paid to people who accept that might need to happen again?
Well, I hate to use these terms, but there's wolves and sheep. And, a lot of people just watch the news and they take what they read on their daily news, and that's what they're going to take for their information. They don't always see the larger scope of things. I've had the fortunate ability over my 50 years on this earth to have traveled the world, been in communist countries and worked in communist countries, worked in the Middle East, seen different things when I was with the military that showed me that, it doesn't really matter if people aren't prepared and they're willing to accept what they're being told. They'll keep feeding off of that, and they start believing that the others that aren't like-minded or hive-minded are, the wolves, basically the ones that are running around wild trying to wreak havoc. And I kind of think that's where a lot of the negative press comes from for a lot of the militia groups.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, we've got a gentleman from Florida It's part of the 3%ers. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat box in all caps. We have a question from Biza Riza Jizza. That's what he calls himself.
Okay. Hey, Bez, how you doing?
Best guess, how many 3%ers are out there?
Well, you'd be surprised. You would really be surprised by how many there actually are. I myself, I've kind of gone dark. I'm doing the gray man thing. I've stepped away from my lead as a state XO a couple years ago because of my job. I still have contacts in positions that I have to go for my consulting job that, you know, if somebody did a background check and they see some of the stuff that I'm doing with this group, they might call into question, why am I really there? So there's a lot of individuals like myself who might align and actively participate. And then there's others that believe in the same philosophy, but they're not actively participating. For example, in New York State, we had several chapters across New York State. We had every county in New York State. We had every county. Basically, throughout the United States, every county has a lead. And then you've got your basic elements inside there for each county where they're interacting on their weekly basis or monthly basis, getting together, having picnics and doing land nav, or they're getting together and going to the range, or, you know, they're practicing OPSEC and doing all different sorts of things. So our numbers at the time that I stepped back with AP3 around the United States was easily well over 10,000 members. And that's just AP3. Again, you have UP3, United Patriots. You've got some other not so racially in tune with society 3%er groups that have split off, and that was part of the big split with Alan Graham. Was there was individuals that took it down a dark road, as I like to call it. I'm pretty inclusive. I believe everybody should be able to live their life without government interference, love who you want to love, and worship who you want to worship. And I do me and you do you, and we all live happily. But there's people out there that have taken this. So you've got other groups that are probably the same large size elements throughout the US. And that's not even counting like regular militia groups, like the ones that are out in front, like the Michigan militia. You know, there's several other groups that are very anti-government. Now, I don't trust the government. Being a Desert Storm veteran, they taught me really well, don't trust what they tell you to take. So I have a very skeptical opinion a lot of times when it comes to government. There's some other groups that are very anti-government as well. And it's both right wing and left wing. So, you know, it's very easy to hide in the weeds when you're not out with it on your shoulder every day.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people kind of focus on is, or don't really, or they kind of, I think, purposely misrepresent it, but they might not just understand it too, is that there's a big difference between being actively anti-government and being someone who's willing or says they're willing to do something if the government were to overstep its bounds and do unconstitutional things. You know, to say like, I'm willing to stand up against tyranny is totally different than saying like, I want to overthrow the current government or something along those lines. But that's blurred a lot of times in the way a lot of these groups or people are presented.
Well, and I had the misfortune of running into Timothy McVeigh when I was stationed at Fort Raleigh.
Oh, really?
So that was, you know, that was something that when I was stationed there and talking to somebody like him, he was definitely what I would consider the dark side of
no shit
anti-government groups. So, you know, you got to watch out. And that's the biggest thing I would tell any of your listeners, that if you're thinking of joining a group or starting your own group, you need to make sure that the people you're putting around you are trustworthy. Now, one of the things that I don't think a lot of people know about AP3 is that there's background checks. We don't want felons around us if we have firearms. It's against the law. So that gets any of these groups in trouble. I mean, if you look at, what is it, the NFAC or
right.
They just recently had somebody in their group shoot a couple of members. So, you know, firearm safety is always a big thing when it comes to this. So you've got to be able to trust whoever's standing next to you when you go to the range, even just in regular life. If you're going to the range, you know, I hate going to public ranges because you got 12 people next to you that you don't know their mental state.
Well, I've had people shoot when I'm sitting there downrange and they start popping shit off. And I had to yell. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's not good.
No,
so
not
you
at
just,
all.
you know, there was a situation in North Carolina where one of the members, they were accidentally shot themselves in the foot. And part of the problem was that we ran airsoft drills and range drills. So we had to put a stiff stipulation in there that the only personnel that were to be armed at all times were the command staff while on the ORP. And then everybody else is supposed to keep their sidearms in their bags, their rifles in their bags, because we had live fire training and we had airsoft training, because airsoft is a great tool for practicing maneuvers and how would you assault a position and stuff like that. So
Right.
that intermingling of firearms is something that, you know, again, you need to be able to trust the people around you. So you can't have somebody that maybe has a checkered past be in your group, because that'll bring down the government agency on you pretty quick.
Right. And you always have
Great
to watch out
question.
for the, oh, go ahead.
No, finish your thought, man. I got a question from the
No, I was just going
audience.
to say, I've seen, at least my opinion, it always seems like these people that they'll put in, like government agents will show up and like actively instigate, like, oh, here, try out this automatic weapon, or let's go do this, when it really wasn't the intention of these people to necessarily do all that sort of thing. Like this government, like the Whitmer plot in Michigan, like they instigate these things and then pat themselves on the back for solving the crime. So got to always be careful of people who are there trying, you know, pushing really hard to do questionable things.
Yeah, we had a guy that was heavily into firearms trading on the black market that approached our group and, hey, I've got all these bump stocks. You guys want bump stocks? And then he's calling me to basically take down the standing CO of the state and, you know, start attacking these people that are going after statues. And I'm like, bro, you know, got together with the command staff, said, this guy's got to go. He's
Right.
too right wing for us. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's just crazy. It has nothing to do with right wing, even at that point. It's just.
Yeah.
Mark Olson is asking, what alternate sources do you use for news events to check out truth versus falsehoods? And I would complement that question by asking, is there something within your network or channels, as it being a part of who you are within this organization, where you get fed information from various sources as a result?
Well, so believe it or not, we do have members of law enforcement that work with our group because they see, you know, what our stance is and they believe in it. And in the state of New York, for example, that was a great state where we had a lot of intel coming directly from state police that they couldn't actively be members of the group because of the Gestapian nature of some of the laws in New York when it came to firearms and whatnot. So we would get a lot of intel from them. Intel could be passed via proton mail. Parlors become another big thing for us as far as, you know, information. Alternate source, if we didn't have somebody that had information operating in the state level or the FBI level, then we would actually, for me, sources like Newsmax is a new one that comes out. I do a lot of Blaze TV. I watch CNN at the same time. So I basically watch all the news channels myself because the messages can be twisted very easily by any agency or any news source. And you have to watch multiple ones to kind of read between the lines. Recently, I've started subscribing to the Epoch Times newspaper, which is founded by a Chinese gentleman who's very anti-CCP and whatnot. So is his information skewed? Oh, absolutely. But is there some good information in there that you won't see on the prime news channels? Yeah, absolutely. So my biggest thing for Mark would be to scan as many of the news channels as you possibly can. You know, watch one news channel in the morning, watch a different one in the evening, and watch one at 11 o'clock at night that's completely different. So you can see the stories and the narratives that are being passed along across multiple platforms.
Yeah, I think that pretty much echoes what we've said before on here. Basically, instead of trying to find someone who's unbiased, which really doesn't exist when you're dealing with humans, just focus on what people's biases might be, go to different sources, and then use that to figure out your own view of what might be going on.
And draw your own conclusion based on your own research through a variety of sources. Can I ask you this? Is there anything going on within the organization that you're part of, the 3%ers, in terms of the possibilities, anything to do with the election? Next couple of days, are they saying you should be doing this, prepare for this, expect this, or we should be doing this? Anything?
Well, so some of the intel that we have come privy to is that there's definitely activities scheduled by members of the BLM or Antifa, especially the John Brown Gun Club, that could be counterproductive for society. So,
can you elaborate?
One
way to put it.
Yeah. So basically, making moves to disrupt suburbs and get out there and make people uncomfortable and basically whine and cry about the election results and cause as much chaos as possible, whether it's, standing in traffic or whether it's blocking people from being able to get onto highways. It's just these little tactics that have been used in Portland and Seattle to disrupt life and make people uncomfortable and basically punish people for the actions that they feel they've taken against what they believe. And it's unfortunately our society, I believe a lot of it has to do with social media and everybody not being able to be punched in the face when they see something that offends. I come from the old school. You got the belt when you did something wrong. And if you've said something wrong, you got a punch in the nose, and then, you go drink a beer with that person, you get over it. But in today's society, people are emboldened. And I think with what we've seen happening in the last 160 days throughout the US, that a lot of these individuals have felt emboldened. There hasn't been repercussions for their actions of attacking stores and diners and blocking highways and whatnot. So you're seeing some of the states are taking more of a proactive stance and trying to eliminate these disruptive protests and saying, look, I'm all for anybody protesting walking down the street, but once you start blocking Joe Smith from being able to go to work, or you start bugging old people at a diner, that's when it gets out of line. And
Right.
Somebody's going to get hurt. There's already been people hurt, but if it goes large scale, like the intel that we're hearing, it could get pretty bad pretty quick.
That's a good segue into one of the other questions here, since you mentioned these groups basically not having anything happen when they do all this crazy stuff. Someone basically, to paraphrase, they're saying if what's going on now or has been in the past few weeks hasn't been enough to initiate a response from a lot of these militia groups or similar groups to yours, what would be that point in which you would feel that your group or others like it should get involved to something like that?
Well, I think that boiling point's about to be reached. I've always said that, unfortunately, America was founded on civil war, and it would have to happen again to right the ship. I don't want to see it happen, but the timing is right. And I think the United States as a whole, and maybe some other countries as well, is a powder keg, much like what happened with the Arab Spring. I mean, everybody was separated, everybody was at everybody's throats, and it's just there. I mean, you just saw it in Texas where the Trump train basically derailed the Biden campaign and blocked their buses and, stalled them from getting to where they were. And, I don't like to see politicians have to cancel events because of actions of people. I wasn't there. I can't tell you, what actually went down. I know what one side of the news says. I know what the other side of the news says. So somewhere in between is probably the truth.
Right.
But I think people are getting fed up. I think that's why you're seeing, in the case just right down here in Florida the other day, they had a 20-mile Trump train.
Yeah.
3,000 cars, that you don't get 3,000 people together because they're happy. You get 3,000 people together because they're fed up and they want to show their support and they're sick of being told they're wrong or whatever the case may be. So, I really think that these next couple of weeks are going to be very critical for what's going to go down. And most of the groups that I know, there's people underneath the chain of command that aren't listening. They're ready to go. They're ready to start throwing lead down range. And that's where the command and leadership needs to really keep their groups calm. Because you see what happened. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. No, dude. It's all good. Sorry.
You see what happened in Charlottesville when somebody that wasn't part of the command got upset, got fed up with what was going on and took matters in their own hand. And that's the risk also of being in any of these groups. If you're in command, just like with the kid up in Wisconsin, that
Right.
kid should not have been put in that position where he was left alone at 17 years old with a long gun being swarmed by a mob.
Right.
His chain of command should be held responsible for it. So
I want you to keep talking. We had JJ briefly show up on
for
the
a second
here, and then he just disappeared. JJ, if you're watching this, you have to come back and you have to speak with our guest. I'm sure you have some questions, and I don't know what happened, but JJ,
definitely come back.
Definitely come back. He was part of the original Prepper Trifecta when we started this thing way back in 1998.
nice.
But anyways, let's please continue. If JJ comes back, he's going to take the floor as far as I'm concerned, if that's okay with Eric.
Absolutely.
to direct the rest of this conversation, because I'm sure he has some important things to say and compliment with. But I'll veer the conversation, if you don't mind, more towards the election, and we'll start with something very generic and basic. Who do you think is going to win? Through your own subjective opinion, but also the consensus amongst the organization. Is there an overpowering energy from the 3%ers suggesting that Trump is going to win, or is there some hesitation?
So for me, it's very tenuous. I think there's a lot of balls in play here, or ballots in play here, that are coming into question. I think there's been a lot of election issues over the last 20 years here in the US with, people registered as dead and voting, or whatever the case may be, or ballots. Like in the last election here in the Miami area, they had ballot boxes that suddenly showed up last minute. And, it's just, I don't think there's trust by either side in this election. From what I'm seeing and hearing on both sides of the fence, I don't think anybody in America is confident about what the outcome of this election is going to be. Now, everybody in the AP, Trump all the way. But there's some of us in there that fear that, no, it could be Biden. It absolutely could be Biden. Maybe there's just many on the left that are just as pissed off. Texas had the more early voting than they had in all of 2016. So there are people turning out in droves. I stood 45 minutes in line a couple of weeks ago to vote early, just because I think that come election day, there's going to still be a lot of people coming out for the first time because they're either fed up with Trump and his verbiage and the way he acts and the stories they've heard. And there's people that are, back in Biden, and they're going to come out to support him. So if I said I was confident in the election being one way, I'd be lying. I'm right down the middle right now. I think we're on a razor's edge, and it could fall either way.
Fair. What's your biggest concern if Trump loses? For you?
Biggest concern for me if Trump loses, and part of the reason that I've gone gray man, is the simple fact that I'm a gun owner. I'm an avid sportsman. I'm a veteran who has been listed with PTSD. And that's something that in New York State, part of the reason I left New York State was they have this insane gun law called the SAFE Act. Right. And in that SAFE Act, any doctor is supposed to report to the state police if somebody has mental deficiencies such as anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and you can have your guns taken. So having my ability to defend my family from anything is one of my biggest concerns. Obviously, taxes is another big thing. I think the economy around the world right now is on a precipice, and you come in and start taxing businesses, jobless rate's going to go up. Now, that's a whole nother segment. I've got a whole theory that they could have just paused everybody's financials and reset all loans 6 months, but the big banks won't do that worldwide. That would have saved everybody, the landlords, the tenants, the business owners, if you didn't have to pay a mortgage for 6 months and just freeze your mortgage. Not a deferment where at the end of it, you got to pay it all back. Like I learned after Irma with all my home damage, 6 months, push it back. That would help the entire economy. But problem is our government, doesn't matter who's in there. It's always about supporting big business. It's always about taking care of the interests of the bankers, the airline industry. It's not about the common people, the people that are really suffering, the people that make the lights go on, the people that make the cars, the people that prep the food. I hate to steal the lines from Fight Club, but it really is what it is. We are the workers. We are the ones that make things go.
True. We have any more questions? And I had someone here, this is not really related directly to, or Mark Olson says, I anticipate spotty internet outages following the election. Any thought? I have heard some people suspect that they might, just because of what we've seen with Twitter and big social media companies really clamping down, literally basically blacklisting certain tidbits of information, that we could see that extend to actual internet providers and actually just shutting it down if things start going the wrong way. I'm not really anticipating that the internet itself will go down. Is that something that you guys have looked at all?
Well, that's why we have alternate communication channels. So one of the stipulations that most of the groups I've interacted with have always demanded communications. You've got to have communications. I've got a portable ham that, legally you're not supposed to use it during a normal situation, but in state of emergency, it can be used. So A lot of people, I don't think, know that. And the other thing with that is, you know, if you want a ham license, it's going up $50 here at the end of the year. So, you know, while it's still free, if you've thought about getting a ham license, I would recommend getting that, because any group that's out there needs to have communications, you know, and if it's a ham, if it's walkie-talkies, whatever the case may be, you need to have an alternate source of communication to get information. And that's where a large network, like any of these groups, Antifa, BLM, AP3, UP3, John Brown, all these groups have communications across the nation. So maybe, I'm not sure where you're based out of, but maybe Florida, for example, gets cut off because something kind of questionable starts happening with the ballots, and they decide to shut down the media down here, or they shut down the social media. Then we still got ways to communicate county to county to say, hey, you know, this is what I'm hearing from our election area, or the election poll booth is this and this, that, and the other. So you've got back channels basically. So the adage we like to use is 1 is none and 2 is 1. So if you only have one means of communication, you lose that means of communication, you got nothing else. So you should always have 2 of everything. So
yeah, I agree.
Wise words.
Yeah. Let's see if we have any other questions here. Yeah, I don't know where JJ went.
He disappeared. What message would you give the audience here? So you, just for the record, you're obviously been into the preparedness game for a while, and thanks for coming on. This has been awesome. You've been a great guest.
I appreciate you having me, by the way.
Love to have you back again sometime to get this sort of unique perspective. And I was describing this to Eric initially in that it's a very fine lens. There's a lot of channels out there. There's a lot of people that talk about preparedness, even online. It's one thing to have a blog or a forum post. It's another to be more personable through videos and to teach or do gear reviews or what have you. But to have somebody like yourself that isn't a part of that, you don't have a YouTube channel. You're very sort of, it's almost like it's an underground unique perspective that the audience would otherwise would not see. What message would you want to give to the people watching this that don't know much about the 3 percenters? Maybe have more, they want to know more about it. What steps would you recommend they take if they wanted to entertain becoming a part of your organization or get some more information about it?
Well, the biggest thing I'll tell everybody is, first off, they have to find a group that is in the same mindset. You know, again, if, you know, there's a lot of great people out there that have felony records and they love this country as much as I do, and they would do anything for this country. So, you know, they could find a group that doesn't have that stipulation that you can't be a felon. You know, there's other groups that law enforcement members join in, such as Oath Keepers. That's the first one I kind of got involved in. But then, you know, I got sick of the annual dues. That's another thing you want to look at. Is there annual dues to this group? Or is there a contribution to the greater good of the group? You know, like the group down here, the chapter I have that I'm with down here, everybody kind of kicks in on the big events, and everybody kind of has supplies that they've provided for the large scale event should something go down that's at the one location that everybody can get to and everybody knows how to get there. So you need to find a group, first off, that suits your beliefs. So that would be my biggest thing. As far as finding information, you know, AP3, for example, they're on Facebook. UP3, they're on Facebook. There's that new group Proud Boys out there, which don't believe the hype. They're not racist. A lot of their leaders are Black, contrary to what the news media will tell you. So, you know, Kyle Rittenhouse is the kid up in Wisconsin. Sorry, his name just came back to me. But, you know, there's groups like that. And then, you know, if there's listeners out there that believe in the communist socialist way, there's the John Brown Gun Club, there's Antifa, you know, and those that want to go BLM route, there's that. If there's any African Americans out there, there's NFAC, you know, Black Panthers, whatever your beliefs are, there's a group that you can find that will match your beliefs and what you believe in. The biggest thing is you need to train with those people. You need to trust in those people that you're with. Now, we don't all have to agree with everybody's message, but that message needs to agree with you if you're going to join a group.
I wasn't aware that Rittenhouse was with any particular group, was he? Because as far as I had known, he was just out there by himself.
No, he was a medic for the Proud Boys chapter. And one of the videos that was circulating out there, you see their leader, who is an African American, telling everybody that, hey, look, we don't trust the government either. We're here to protect you so you can peacefully protest. But if you step in and start doing damage, that's where it comes in. And then, they interviewed the kid, Kyle, earlier in the night. He was talking about he's there. He's got his little medic kit. He's going to help out. And some protesters went by that got in tear gas, and he's trying to help them out. And that's when he got separated from his group, because he followed and walked off with the protesters that had been tear gassed and trying to help them. And then that's when he got kind of cornered by the guy who he first shot, who had challenged the group earlier at the gas station. So there, again, the information was kind of what suited their narrative for the news. So again, just make sure when you're looking at these groups that, again, your mindset and your beliefs match with theirs. So you don't compromise what you believe in.
What's the craziest batshit thing that you've come across in terms of a prospective member approaching you to say, hey, I want to join? And you're thinking, because I've met my few, I've met a lot of preppers. I'm sure you have as well over the years. And I've seen a lot of crazies out there. What have you seen? I'm just curious what kind of nonsensical people wanted to join your group or organization that you were like, you rejected because they were too extreme, because of what?
Well, it would definitely be that individual that we met who was firearms dealer. He also had surplus military supplies, and he was very, very take down the government now type of scenario. Let's react. We've got this group. Why aren't we doing anything now? And this is 3 years ago. We weren't even to this.
What do you think should happen to a guy like that? He approaches you. He's obviously got some vendetta, for lack of a better term. Do you let it be, or do you maybe feed some information somewhere where he can be observed, we'll say?
Well, if you're asking, will we turn that over to the FBI or law enforcement? No. Generally what we would do is we'd contact other groups in the area that we know of and give them a heads up about the individual, basically kind of blackball them behind the scene. Fortunately, that individual, I really believe he was probably a plant from ATF to try to get us into harm's way, especially when it started with the bump stock issue. So there's a lot of things that you have to be aware of when you start getting these individuals. Is it really that they're mentally unstable, or is it, this is trying to exploit the group, or maybe try to push the group into a trap, kind of like what happened out there in Michigan,
specifically with bump stocks, like those are only recently illegal. And if you really want to dip your toe into the legal stuff, why would you fuck around with bump stocks? You'd want to go with like 3D printed auto steers or something, probably. But
well, and again, it was right when they were coming out to start going after the bump stocks.
Right, so exactly. That's what I mean. It's like, this little baby thing, it's not really a big deal. Yeah, that's what I mentioned that earlier, because that seems to always be the case. Like, of course, there are the Timothy McVeighs out there, but it seems like most of the time they bust these plots. It's a plot that they basically concocted and then convinced some people to go along with it, and then busted them for it.
And that's the thing. I mean, we've had the hotheads, as I like to call them, the young guns that come into the group, and, they don't understand why people have to be disarmed at the range or when they're not on the range. And it's like, look, yes, you have a Second Amendment, but you're on somebody's private property. When you go to a commercial range, you can't walk in carrying on your side. You can't have a loaded weapon when you walk in. You can only load it once you get on the range. Right. So, you get these people. And the other thing I would always fight with my guys is, just because you can say something because you have a First Amendment right doesn't mean you should. And you just get those hotheads. So you just have to to learn, especially at being ex-military, trying to learn with civilians, no offense to anybody. But, you just have to learn that, civilians generally don't see the chain of command as something. They question everything. So it takes a little bit more time for them to understand the reasoning behind a chain of command and what the importance is.
True.
Wise words, not only chain of command, but maybe the bigger picture, which is, while you can say something, it isn't necessarily wise to say how you feel about any particular subject.
Yeah, not only chain of command, but having a specific role too. Like when you're doing anything with, in the military, everyone has something that they have to take care of that, and you have to know that guy is going to take care of that too.
Well, and that's the thing. Like these groups, there are so many roles that are played, because it's not combat age people a lot of times. I mean, the group, we had one couple, they paid for a band to come play the one weekend at our field exercise. more people would actually, some of the people that didn't want to be into the firearms and the maneuvers, they would do all the cooking and the setting up and whatnot, because in a real world scenario, you're going to have people that will be your frontline elements, and then you're going to have your people in the rear. So you need to be able to groom those people for whatever they can do. Don't dissuade just because somebody's got a cane doesn't mean that they can't help out at the comm station on an overnight watch. So, again, it comes down to really taking what you believe in and understanding that there are others out there that feel the same way you are, and working with a group you can trust.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to wrap up here shortly. If you do have any last minute questions, please ask them in all caps. Love to have you again as a guest.
Anytime, guys.
Representative. We do have a question here from a gentleman named William McCaslin. Asks, is there any way the 3%er can, we're talking about chain of command, is there any way the 3%ers can follow the money, as in who the hell is financing all the chaos? Is this something you look at, or?
That's a great question. We actually, I had to have my mission pulled back. A couple years ago, we had locked in on George Soros's location, a couple other people that were involved in paying and funding things, and we had his physical address. We were planning on protesting outside. Obviously in New York State, you can't really go with firearms, especially with your carry concealed down in the Westchester County area. So it was going to be a protest. We also had some ops on the Muslim training camp up in the Palinville, New York area in the Catskills. And we had to stand down on that as well, because the state police were getting involved and the FBI was involved and the ATF were looking into it. So, we had a few members that left the group in New York State when I was up there because we wouldn't take action. But the problem was, again, if you're dealing with government agencies who are actively investigating somewhere, the last thing you want to do is step foot on that property as a member of one of these groups, because automatically on the news, you're going to be a militia member. You guys are trying to start a war. You're trying to start civil war. So it's also what you have to do to protect all the members in the group and your well-being, because the last thing you want to do is get in the way of ATF. Now, the biggest one that, I think most people may be aware of is Bundy Ranch and the fight against BLM. There were several members of many of the militia groups and 3%er groups that went out to Bundy Ranch to fight and stand for Alan Bundy and his family when BLM was not Bureau of Land Management, by the way, for those that don't know that one.
The other BLM, yeah.
Yeah, the original BLM. So, and their ill-gotten acquiring of land that had been farmsteaded for years by the Bundy family. So there's a lot of things that can get people in trouble. And I think that's what scared the government the most, was when they saw how many patriots across all militia groups and 3%er groups and other groups showed up to defend one farmer's livelihood.
A powerful message when a bunch of people do that, I think.
Yeah.
Yep, the last time that message went out was 1776, so Boston Harbor. So I mean, that's I think, circling back to your question about if Biden gets in, that's my biggest thing, is coming for these groups, coming to take down these groups and take the firearms that we have acquired, legally purchased, to defend our families, to defend our property, and defend our rights. That's the biggest concern with a lot of these groups.
Right. That's what I would suspect. True. Yeah. I mean, it shows that hopefully that would be the goal, is to get to a point where they know that they can't do these things. There isn't actually a conflict to begin with, so they do not have to fight for it.
There's a reason we were never invaded during World War II, because I believe it was Yamamoto that said, behind every blade of grass is a rifle.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and it's only more. There's way more now than there were back then, especially within the last year. I mean, this millions and millions of guns have been sold. So
yeah, a friend of mine,
a lot out there.
One of the big box stores, said that they just sold 400,000 first-time gun sales this year, when last year was only 70. So,
well, when I went to stock up, there were just all these liberal types that it was very odd, because you could tell they didn't know very much about different types of ammunition, what they could do. It's like they wanted to say, you know, what's the type that is good for shooting humans in self-defense?
But they couldn't ask that outright.
So they're
Like, if I hit someone in the head, will it explode?
Yeah. With that said, Eric, maybe you could take us out, but I'd like to get
really
final words from our guest before exiting. Is there anything else you want to just say before we close out here?
Yeah, I wish everybody, you know, good luck in the upcoming weeks. Keep your head on a swivel. Always be ready for whatever the scenario is. Train for the worst, pray for the best.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Definitely a measured, intelligent perspective. I appreciate that. Like we had just been talking about a little bit before you came on, that a lot of us, including me at least, I know I had a general perspective of the 3% idea, but not any knowledge about particular groups that have come out of that. So it's definitely good to get some perspective on that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, guys. I'd love to be back on.
Cool.
Not necessarily talking 3% stuff, but anything I can help out on the other side of things.
Excellent. I appreciate it. So
Thanks
for watching,
gentlemen.
everybody. Yeah, thank you, sir. We will probably call it a night. It's getting just past the hour and 15-minute mark. So appreciate everyone watching, and stay safe for the next. We'll get to you a week later. Hopefully everything won't be too crazy by then through the election and whatnot. So just make sure, like I've always been saying for the past few weeks, make sure you guys have at least the ability to not leave your place of residence for a few days. I think we'll get most people through any potential disruptions. Hopefully it won't be too crazy, but you never know. So as always, be prepared. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will talk to you.